And you can grab your lunch if you haven't done so already. You can grab your lunch outside. Can you acknowledge all those? I acknowledge the elected officials and pass it to you.
Someone was much taller than me. All right. Shall we get started, everyone? Well, I'm so excited to be here. So me and my colleague Alicia are here from the State Office of Broadband. I'm Devin Bronstein. I'm the new Assistant Director of the office as of, I think, now 5 weeks ago. Most recently came from the city of Chicago working in broadband and digital equity. I see lots of familiar faces, but lots of new faces. So I'm really excited to be here. I, am passionate about the Northeast myself. I live in Chicago, so really not that far away. But welcome to one of our Northeast Digital Equity convenings. We're really excited to be back after a listening session last year to share some important updates on our digital equity plan, ways to participate in the BEAD Map challenge process, and also to hear some updates from Aurora. So like I mentioned, I'm Devin Bronstein, and this is my colleague Alicia Ross, who you'll hear from in just a little bit. And now I'm honored to pass it over to Clayton Muhammad, Senior Advisor and Mayor Spokesperson from the City of Aurora.
Thank you. Thanks and good morning, everyone. Give another round of applause to our friends from the Illinois Broadband and DCO. That applause goes to yourself as well. Thanks for coming out on this foggy morning here for such an important conversation as we look at bridging the digital divide. President Obama thinks that it best when he said the internet is not a luxury, it is a necessity. And we understand how important that is, and to underscore that, the city of Aurora certainly is partnered with our state partners and partners throughout the county and the region to make certain that we level the playing field when it comes to digital access and empowerment. On behalf of Mayor Richard Irvin, we bring you greetings. Welcome to City Hall today. The mayor extends his thanks to our team members here, to our Chief Information Officer, Mr. Mike Piggies, and everyone who came out today to talk about this important topic. Last fall, we had our listening session and gathered so much great information. So now we come full circle as we now convene together again to discuss this important topic. At City Hall, the mayor's vision has always been one Aurora. And that doesn't just mean all of us coming together by race and nationality and faith and all sides of town, but it also means one Aurora. Aurora that's level, that the playing field is level, that's inclusive, and that it's equitable. And so we've done work in equity, in job force and workforce development, work in housing equity, and of course work in the digital equity space inside of City Hall and outside of City Hall. I'd be remiss if I didn't recognize our Director of Equity, Diversity, Inclusion here in City Hall. Ms. Michelle Clark is here, who definitely leads the charge in this space in so many ways. Before I pass it over to Mr. Piggies, I want to acknowledge a number of our elected officials who are here. We have two City Council persons here. Ward 8 Alderwoman Patty Smith is here. Thank you, Alderwoman. Alderman at Large John Lash is here. Thank you, John, for coming out. We are joined by Aurora Township Trustee Ms. Juanita Wells is here. She was here bright and early. First one, ready to go. Kane County Board Member Ron Ford. Former City Hall staffer here. Kane County Board Member Michelle Gums is here as well. She wears multiple hats, and I know she'll speak today on behalf of Comcast, but we want to recognize her in her elected official capacity as the Village of Woodridge trustee. Kalisha Page, Kay Page is here as well. Thank you so much. So welcome again. We look forward to this conversation and moving Aurora forward in the Aurora area forward as we level the playing field for digital equity in this space. And I'll turn it over to Mr. Mike Piggies.
Thank you, Mr. Muhammad. Let's give it another round of applause for Clayton, who so eloquently speaks at all our events. Also, I actually just want to acknowledge a few other organizations because I think it's really important about when we start talking about equity. One is the Aurora Public Library. Let's give them a round of applause. They do a lot for our community. I also want to acknowledge our community ISP, which is Onlight Aurora with Sir Charles Baker. You raise your hand. And again, Pastor Spencer over there eating a sandwich with the Maine Baptist Church, and we'll talk a little bit about why Maine Baptist and all churches are very important within this digital equity space. Give them a round of applause. Also, some of my colleagues from the Village of Westmont, if you could raise your hand. All right. And we have Megan and her team here from Kendall County and the GIS team right here supporting as well. And a special shout out to a lot of our technology partners. There's so many, but we have NTI here, we have Noble Tech, we have Current Technologies, we have T-Mobile, and I believe we have Verizon as well. So I just want to thank everybody for coming here as well and actually supporting this initiative on such a short notice. Thank you, and give yourself a round of applause. All right, so real quick, you can take a look there. This is going to be today's agenda. We're going to be here to 1 o'clock. I think we'll have enough time, but please just keep us on point here. Right now, we're at the digital equity plan and activity piece. And then after that, I believe Devin and Alicia is going to go through the BEAD challenge process, which is very important because they have all the money at the state level, right? All right. And then we're going to kind of close out with questions. And we'll try to be I'd say flexible and take some questions, but we may need to cut them off and kind of push them towards the end. All right. Any questions? All right. So we know the objective here today. We're going to be talking about digital equity, right? There is a huge plan, and we've been collaborating with the state for the last couple years, I think 2 or 3 years, and actually COVID actually slowed that down. You know, we'll get into some of the activities we did here in the city of Aurora to kind of fill that void during the COVID period as well. But also, Devin and her team is going to talk about a lot of the things that are coming down the pipeline because we are in the round 3 of that, and there's a lot of other innovation and funding that she's going to be talking about as well. And also, she's going to talk a little bit about the quality public comments. Again, that's the input that you provide us and the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, and how people can actually participate in the BEAD challenge and how we can spread the word because awareness is key as well. So, all right. So I think, you know, we kind of hit on this in terms of who's the community members, who's the non-for-profits, who's the elected officials. Clayton hit that in one full swoop, right? So is there anybody else here in the room in terms of organization, right, that we need to kind of recognize as a player in this space? Yes, sir.
Church, organization, Disciples of Jesus Ministry.
All right, we got the faith-based.
Pastor Johnson, yeah.
Pastor Johnson. Okay, we apologize for that, Pastor. Okay. Pastor Johnson. All right. Amanda. That's EX squared. They're absolutely. All right. Anybody else? Go ahead.
So the Kendall GIS department is here, but also Connect Kendall County is here.
And Connect Kendall County. I apologize for that. And that's my oversight as well. All right. All right. So anybody else? I got half of my IT department in here as well. So, yes, ma'am. Living Daylight Organization. Thank you for your participation. And I'd like to give one special shout out to the young lady over there, the little young lady here, right there in the green shirt as well, because this is what, As a boy? My bad. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. You got some beautiful hair, all right? So, but that young man right there is what this is all about. How do we basically fill the gap for generations to come? That's why we're here, to figure that out, right? And it's a socioeconomic problem as well, right? So that's what we're going to be talking about as well. All right. All right. We want to meet absolutely. Devin's going to come back up and speak a little bit.
Thank you. If I grab this. All right, so before we dive in, we wanted to kind of introduce/reintroduce ourselves as the Illinois Office of Broadband, because even in the past 4 months, the office has changed a lot. You may have known the Office of Broadband as 2 folks. Now we are close to 10 people, and that's really as we build capacity ahead of the $1 billion plus that are coming to Illinois in the next 5 years. So excited to be here. Just to give you some context on who the Office of Broadband is and how it fits into the state of Illinois, we are an office within the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, or DCEO. So you can see on the side there's kind of a little org chart that shows how we fit into the rest of how the state functions. Within our office, we have 2 main functions. We have a grants management team and a community engagement team. And then I'd like to call out the Illinois Broadband Lab. This is our partnership with the University of Illinois system, and they provide essential support with mapping, research, data, regional engagement, and they've stood up a digital navigator network. So while this office has been around since 2019, now every state is actually required to have a state broadband office so we can carry out that mission of closing the digital divide, connecting all unserved and underserved households in the state of Illinois. So we'll talk more about the money soon. Just a quick highlight of our partners at the Illinois Broadband Lab. All right, so to set the table a little bit about this, historic federal funding that you've been hearing about or may not have heard about. So there are kind of 2 big things that the Illinois Office of Broadband is tasked with over the next 5 years. The first is the BEAD program, which is the Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Program. We'll talk more in detail about this throughout the presentation, but to give you an idea of timeline, over the next several months, kind of the process that we're in now is planning. We're working on making sure that we have documented where broadband is and is not available on a map accurately. Once that map is finalized, we'll go through a 1-year process to select sub-grantees, so providers who will actually be tasked with connecting those areas that need to be connected. And then following that selection, we'll kick off 4 years of implementation. So at the end of that 4 years, every household should have a broadband connection. The second bucket here is what we'll also go into detail in today. This is the Digital Equity Act. So what happens once you have that infrastructure? It's all of the things on top of that, making sure that folks have the skills, support, and knowledge that they need to use the internet to participate and thrive in our modern economy. So you'll hear about a big listening tour we did last year, and we'll do a deep dive into our digital equity plan, which is actually required to unlock close to $30 million in funding for local capacity building around the state. So that's going to be a big thing over the next 5 years. In addition to just some of the ongoing pieces of the office's work, operating communities of practice, bringing practitioners together to share best practices, troubleshoot together, getting that map right, running different grant programs, and lots more. All right, and with that, I believe I will pass it back to Michael for some local updates.
Thank you, Devin. All right, let's jump into this real quick. We got 15 minutes. So what I wanted to do was just refer back to a community survey that we did from last year, the first half of 2023, that provided us some insight and data into what the community was thinking. As you can see, we did the survey, and you can see, if you can see that up there, we got a community satisfaction rating of 77% of our respondents in terms if they were satisfied with the current internet service in their home, right? There's also a breakdown there by age, income, and also, I can't even see it myself, age and income and ethnicity, right? But again, this question is basically asked to describe how you would describe your overall satisfaction with the current internet service, in your home. And I believe it was a sample of 790 participants or respondents within the city of Aurora boundaries. But we're going to go a little bit deeper than that, right? Now, when we ask the question, when thinking about internet services available in your area, which of the following factors would you most like to see improve, right? And 66% of the respondents basically said that they would like to see the cost in their area improved. And it goes back to the point that I was talking about before in terms of social economics, right? So cost came up at 66%, speed was 47%, and reliability was 44%. And then you can see the rest, right, where it goes down. And it was choice of providers was almost a third, which is at 29%, right? And then it talked about customer support and technical services. And then it was about 9% that said that they didn't know, right? I mean, those are staggering numbers, but it tells you, it gives you a data point in terms of where we need to look within the city of Aurora in terms of where we need to be focusing. And it goes back to why we're here today and why we have these diverse organizations here, because it's about cost. Absolutely number one about cost and those individuals who are impacted, which is the disenfranchised communities. So we asked the question, what are we going to do here in Aurora with regards to that in conjunction with what we're doing with our partners at the states and all of you? And I'm going to take you through this video real quick, if I can get this to work. Just sit there.
Imagine what's possible when a city makes an unprecedented investment, a commitment
We're gonna pause it
that
for a second.
reshapes a city's landscape forever, that equalizes economic opportunity, elevates education for all.
And the video is about 3 minutes, so thank you for your patience. You can eat your potato chips in the sandwich in the meantime. Pastor, you done over there? Are y'all done eating? Are y'all fed?
Businesses,
Yeah, I'm sorry.
imagine what's possible when a city makes an unprecedented investment, a commitment that reshapes a city's landscape forever, that equalizes economic opportunity, elevates education for all, empowers businesses, inspires collaboration between institutions, improves public services, and enhances the lives of every resident. Now, imagine that city is ours. We know it's possible because other cities have done it. Places like Longmont, Colorado, a community that leveraged its investment in municipal electricity and upgraded its substations to create a 17-mile fiber loop, delivering critical connectivity to the city's institutions, organizations, and small businesses, achieving an incredibly high adoption rate. And in Pharr, Texas, a border town of 80,000, voted the least connected city in America, invested in 700 miles of fiber, delivering broadband managed services that are enriching residents' lives. Cities, towns, and regions are stepping up all over America. There is no question that Aurora can and deserves to be America's next great smart city. But it's up to us. We have a responsibility we can't ignore to see everyone living in our city, regardless of economic status, having broadband services that are simple, efficient, safe, and powerful. Imagine children having safe internet access anywhere, never needing to connect outside of a fast food restaurant. Imagine every building in every neighborhood and retail outlet, new and old, modernized, intuitive, secure. Imagine exciting subscribers with the ultimate broadband experience and giving parents control over all of it. Imagine deploying cyberbullying protection that notifies parents throughout Aurora that their kids are being bullied and providing resources to protect them. Imagine a city with first responders seamlessly connected and with safer public spaces. Can you see this smart city? Can you see our future? We do. Aurora is ready for world-class connection that serves our residents, that helps businesses grow and unifies our community. Let's take this opportunity to give all of our residents, businesses, and community organizations the advantages that come with unrivaled broadband infrastructure and services. Let's come together and deliver a world where digital equity creates a city that is smarter, safer, and sustainable for generations to come.
So that's the vision, right? And needless to say, I've probably been working on this the last 5 years. And there's going to be more to come with that this year. And we'll get back to you because it'll probably take me this whole session and probably, the rest of the day to go through it in more detail. So more to come on that. But I just want to stop, just take a couple questions here, just being conscious of time. Is there any questions with regards to that vision and what we're trying to do? And just to kind of summarize, we're looking to provide economical high-speed internet services to our residents, passing all 63,000 residential homes and businesses, providing additional video awareness or surveillance services at home, and also providing the cyberbullying platform for parents and to kind of monitor their kids online, right? And those will be economical in terms of price points. And we will start in the disenfranchised communities first, right? Ward 7, wards, which wards are they, Charles? 2, 7, and yes, 8, 9, 10. But like I said, there will be more to come with regards to that. And we've been speaking with the different counties, Kendall, also Kane, and a lot of our partners with regards to this. This is not something that just popped up, just overnight. So more to come. Yes, Pastor. You want to pass that mic to the pastor?
I'm not really knowledgeable about it, so I don't know if my question is to be understood like I'm asking it. But say, like, for instance, I live in Aurora and I have Infinity. So with the broadband, would it eliminate me having that? And
No, it won't. It will also become your choice, right?
Okay.
Which provider? And again, if you remember the list of statistics, I believe the choice of providers was number 4 or 5 of those most important points. So again, it's just providing variety here within the community.
But will it be more beneficial for me versus Infinity?
That's going to be dependent upon you, but
Okay.
absolutely. Right.
Okay.
Any other questions before I jump into this? Alderman Lash?
Is your plan to have this be publicly owned or looking at a private partnership in which the partnership governs most of the?
No, this actually will be the city's municipal network, which is owned by the residents, working with our community internet service provider. Next question. Yes, ma'am.
Will this include the unincorporated area in Aurora?
We're working with Kane County on that topic today. That's why we have the 2 board commissioners here, ma'am. Great question. Any other questions or comments? Yes, absolutely, Commissioner.
Thank you, Michael. Michelle here from King County. Just wanted you guys to know that we've had a presentation from the team at King County's level. We are looking at perhaps helping to fund this for those unincorporated areas. We just have to sell it to our other board members, so feel free to call all the King County board members.
All right, great question.
We'll help you with numbers too.
Yeah.
Write your congressman. Any other questions? So I'm just going to jump into just a kind of quick update here in the city of Aurora in terms of what we're doing in terms of digital equity, because broadband is one, right? It's one aspect of it, right? There's also literacy as well, right? And there's the financial piece, so forth and so on. So as we can see, one of the things we use is a platform called Zen City to actually engage our constituents. That platform was used to pull that data from the respondents in terms of the satisfaction survey and specifically around broadband, right? Our objective is to stop digital discrimination. And, I'm just going to be so bold to say it. I just think it's another version of digital redlining. So we had applied for a $100 million broadband infrastructure grant to the federal government and NTI last year, the year before, it was this year, but we got denied, which we kind of understood we would because we already have the middle mile, right? But at the same time, we're also working with the state, and we have a grant application out for $10 million that we're working with. But again, our plan is not contingent on money from the federal government and or state, right? That's just going to help to offset a lot of the costs, right? Some of the other things that we're working on is partnering with Nicor Gas and their Smart Neighborhood initiative. And actually, I'd like to probably get Mr. Muhammad, if he's here, to speak a little bit about that with regards to the Nicor Smart Neighborhood thing.
We have a partnership with Nicor that not only is building a smart neighborhood on the far west side of Aurora, but really looking at incorporating this new technology throughout Aurora. And in early February, you're on our connected list, you'll get an invitation to a ribbon cutting and an announcement ceremony on the Nicor Smart City model that we'll build out here in our building, the Chuck Nelson Development Services Center on the corner of Benton and Downer. But really exciting, what we're doing with that electricity and that public access electricity to be able to connect communities and to build affordable neighborhoods that are connected in an equitable way as well. So stay tuned. Again, if you're not connected to our email address, if you leave your business card, we will certainly get that information out to you. But just one of the many projects that we're working on to stay connected here in the city of Aurora.
Thank you, Mr. Muhammad. And I just wanted to
I
add
have
that.
a question for Mr. Mohammed.
Question from Alderwoman. You
Yes.
knew it was coming.
I'm just wondering how far will that reach? It's located down in the west. How far into the city? What is the expansion area in which it will reach?
Yeah, well, the Nicor neighborhood itself is going to be on Jericho Road, that it builds out there. And we'll look at, how far that expands into the city and what that rollout looks like as it goes forth there. But we'll start with one concentrated neighborhood.
Okay, just that particular area out there. And
To start off with.
The long-term goal is to expand it into the center of the city? And
I believe Nicor's goal is to expand that reach there for sure.
Thank you.
Did you say Nicor electricity or did you
Gas.
Gas, the utility. Yeah, one of the public utilities there.
What if the state outlaws natural gas, like a lot of states are doing it here?
Yeah, I'm not certain what that. Yeah, we'll come to that when it comes to that for sure.
So the other thing that I wanted to add, and also this smart neighborhood will be actually powered by on-light fiber. So the broadband itself is a combination of county fiber and the city of Aurora fiber that's going to light that neighborhood up. If there's no other questions, I'm going to skip on. I'm going to jump over the AI because that might scare a lot of people. So, all right. Here's one of the things that I want to talk about that I'm very proud of, and I know the mayor is proud of, and the aldermen and everyone in here, is our Aurora STEM Academy. This kicked off back in 2020, and we did a pilot of actually 40 kids in the disenfranchised community. And at that time, it was Ward 7 with our late Alderwoman Shakita Hartburn, and also Wani Garza and other aldermen and women on there, but they were the main ones who actually helped us to spearhead that. And we did a pilot in 2020 right during COVID, and the kids were basically sent home to do remote learning at school. And we had a sit-down conversation with Pastor Spencer over at Maine Baptist Church to say, how can we provide these kids? Actually, he asked the question to me specifically, how can you basically provide, internet services to these kids in the community so they can basically get connected and do their schoolwork? And we said, you know what, Pastor? We can basically set up some point-to-point, some internet services, and just beam it straight to that church and provide it, free of cost to the church, and the city actually subsidized the cost. Now, this was a partnership between the city, also at the time OnLight, Aurora, and also Scientel Solutions. And that pilot was very successful, to say the least. Now, before I go into that a little bit more, I'd actually like to get the words directly from Pastor Spencer with regards to that initiative, right?
Stereo. Good morning, everyone. As Michael said, it was an amazing opportunity for the city of Aurora and all the folks partnered with to just make yourselves available to provide access to the students and families in our area. And it really became a community type effort where, when they were there were parents coming, bringing their children, dropping them off. We had, teachers, my son was one of them, but others that were kind of sharing, and has been great. There were even folks from our church asking, hey, when can we get in? Mm-hmm. How can we, hey, you got to sign up somewhere else. And so just to get that access and to see our children working on the various things that they created, and so they created a car that moved around. They created a Christmas tree that lit up, and different things using coding, using technology, using computers, and it's just amazing just to see the young people. First of all, I think what amazed me, and I think what amazes a lot of us, that technology is understood a lot more by younger people than we could even imagine. And so to see, elementary school kids making robots, something we thought was so far out, and they're just tinkering around, making it do what it do. And so it's very exciting, very helpful for our community. Hopefully we can continue that and do a lot more of that, because it is certainly needed. And to think that there's hundreds and maybe thousands of homes in Aurora where they have to come to the church to get internet, I think is where we are. It's a very real thing. And so to be able to provide that and be a center, I think is amazing. So thank you so much.
Can we get an amen? Amen. So I mentioned that it was a collaboration between the city, OnLight, and also Scientel, but also with NTI. But that was just to set up the infrastructure. But to deliver those coding classes, that's when APS Training Academy came in, and TinkerWorks. They provided the curriculum, right? That was TinkerWorks. APS provided the delivery, the laptops, the instructors, right? And the city provided the infrastructure and the funding. That program was so successful, we continued on the following year in 2021, and we hit 600, right, the following year in 2021. In 2022, we actually had 800, right? And then that number actually was overshot, and we overshot that over like 1,000 students, right? And then even this year alone, actually in 2023, we're over, if I'm not mistaken, about 1,500. That's delivering these STEM classes to disenfranchised kids in the Aurora community. And we have 12 of those virtual learning centers. Like the model itself was first at Maine Baptist, and then we developed another 11 of those throughout, I think it's 10 of those throughout the community, correct, Charles? Throughout the communities. Sacred Heart Church, right? Where else, Charles? Help me out with this. We have the Internet Cafe at La Quinta Restaurant. We had the dance studio, I'm sorry, right here.
Simply Destiny.
And the TBOC, Taking Back the
Aurora
Community.
Public Library, indoor, where kids were able to drive into the parking lot and be able to access the internet that way. All 11 community centers were strategically located in underserved communities. During the pandemic, it was actually a life send. I actually was able to kind of go through some of the locations to see some of the kids hosted and some of the programs that they were able to deliver because they didn't have that access at home. And so it was a really great opportunity for me as someone who started in the pandemic to be able to see opportunity to put the community first and doing best for the community instead of just profit.
Absolutely, absolutely. So just another successful project we had, and again, through partnerships and working in the community, right? So we're very proud of that. If no questions, I'm going to go on. I'm going to hit this one real light. This is just some of our initiatives that are going on, but I'm not going to get into a lot of these, but I'm going to pass it over to Michelle Clark to talk about our diversity, equity, and inclusion strategy. But the one thing that I do want to point out is, as a city and an organization, we want to focus on those EU Sustainable Development Goals, and there's 17, right? And we do have that as part of our technology strategic plan.
Internally. I'm really happy to be part of this initiative because one of the things that we completed during COVID was a disparity study. And what that disparity study told us was that we were underutilizing many of our minority-owned businesses, women-owned businesses. And quite frankly, we found out that they simply didn't have the access to some of the contracts. And so we launched a business equity initiative. And we know that having access and building capacity in the digital space will definitely benefit our small minority-owned and women-owned businesses in the community. So we launched that effort formally this year. And so a couple of things that we know is when we level the playing field around digital equity, and like Mike mentioned, it's not just giving access, it's the literacy. When we do that, businesses will become more innovative. They have access to greater resources. They begin to hire people in the community. And so what we know about women and minority-owned businesses, they're more likely to hire people who look like them. And so these are initiatives that we are really excited about. And this is just one of those things when we talk about One Aurora, that the digital equity space and keeping in mind our small and minority-owned businesses. So super excited to launch that BE initiative, and you'll see more about that in the next couple of months. Thank you.
All right, I'll just take a couple minutes to see if there's any questions. I'm going to hand it back to Devin and the team so they can give an update on the state digital equity plan. Are there any questions at the moment? And we should have some time at the end too, so give you time to digest a little bit. A lot of good stuff going on. All right, Devin?
Amaze over here. Do you mind handing me this? Thank you. All right, so we've heard about all of the amazing things that are happening already in Aurora. So now we'll zoom out a little bit and talk about what does the statewide digital equity plan look like. And before I hand it over to my colleague Alicia to get us through the details, I want to set the table a little bit. So like I mentioned before, you might be hearing about these historic federal dollars going towards broadband and digital equity. So I want to break it down before we dive into the plan. There are two buckets of funds that are coming out of the bipartisan infrastructure law, and both are associated with a bill called the Digital Equity Act. The first piece of these funds is called the Digital Equity State Capacity Grant Program. So this will be a formula-funded grant going directly to every state. Under one condition, those states need to put together a community-informed digital equity plan. So we are rolling. We have our draft plan out there, and we are on target to be able to unlock those funds. We're expecting between $30 and $35 million, and then we'll be coming back to community to hear from you so we can co-create what this capacity building grant program actually looks like and help Aurora, help all of these surrounding counties, help folks statewide sort of build capacity in their communities to be able to launch their own digital equity work, whether that's community-based programs, digital navigators, computer centers, initiatives led through local government, and so much more. So looking forward to that. And then the second piece here is called the Digital Equity Competitive Grant Program. This will be a grant program administered by the federal government, so by the NTIA, which is the department who's kind of overseeing all of this work. So this will be a fund that city governments can go after directly, that regions can go after, nonprofits, faith-based institutions. So we're excited to see that guidance and then figure out how we can be aligned on the state and the local level. And so with that, all of this leads to our state digital equity plan, which again is required to unlock those capacity dollars. So I'm excited to hand it over to my colleague Alicia Ross to walk us through this section.
Thank you so much, Devin. I think we don't have to do anything, Michael. You all are doing everything.
No, we just need the money. That's all we need.
We have all the wonderful partners here. I mean, it's amazing. So a little bit about me. My name is Alicia Ross. I actually have started working with the Illinois Office of Broadband as a fellow about 18 months ago. And then I started working full-time with the office as a community engagement manager. But my experience actually goes back to the beginning days and early 2000 when I was working with University of Chicago, Internet Project. I was doing some of the same things that you all are discussing today. So I was technically a digital navigator, but what I was doing is I was doing digital literacy courses. I was working in churches. I was working in schools. I was working in community organizations, doing presentations to city officials when I was actually in Chicago, in the Chicagoland area, South Side, West Side, East Side, or Southeast Side. I'm originally from Long Island, New York, so all of the sides, yeah, New Yorker. But I've been in Illinois for about 20 years. And the advancement in digital equity as it relates to our state, our cities, our towns, but also as the federal. When we received those fundings back in the announcement in 2021, it was amazing for me as someone who was on the ground back in the day, if you will, doing some of the things that you all are doing now, to see that we actually have a federal act. And so that we actually have funding that is going to be applied to all of the states. And then to be a part of what we are doing here in Illinois is amazing. So one of the things that we want to discuss is the covered populations. The covered populations, again, this is the federal definition of what covered populations are. The low-income households, the aging population, incarcerated individuals, veterans, people with disabilities, people with language barriers, racial, ethnic minorities, and rural inhabitants. All right. It's interesting, again, kind of referencing back in the day. Of course, those of you who've been in this field off and on throughout the years, it was bridging the digital divide. So what we want to do is we want to continue to do that, bridging the digital divide. It's the same thing. It's digital equity. And what does digital equity mean for all of us? What does digital equity mean for us as a state? And then what does digital equity mean for you all? Of course, we have NTIA's definition. Digital equity is the condition in which individuals and communities have sustained access and the capabilities for productive use of information technology that is needed for full participation in the society and economy of the United States. But what does it mean for you? So actually I'm asking that question. I'd love to have feedback from a couple of you to share what does it mean for you, those of you who are working in this space of digital equity, those of you who are supporting it as a business, organization, of course, as some of our local government partners. What does digital equity mean to you, and for you?
I actually will start just sort of very general and simple. To me, it means it's the haves and the have-nots, just simply put.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Michael.
And equal playing field, connectivity for everybody.
Yes, thank you. Equal playing field. Have-nots.
I'd also say literacy too, just having some education and background. I mean, I think it goes along hand in hand with that as well.
Right. Literacy. And literacy across the spectrum. It's not just literacy, understanding how the basics of computer knowledge, right? But how to use the computer in order to create your resume, how to use the computer to actually apply for a position, right? How to use the computer in order to use, for health, for your health, telehealth, if you will. And that's something, of course, was more evident when 2020 came about. We realized that we needed to be literate in technology in order to reach our doctors to reach us during the time of the pandemic. Thank you all. Economic sustainability. Exactly. So economic sustainability, financial, digital literacy. And this is something that we actually are working on with some of our partners, some of our state agency partners, and we'll be coming out with some more of that information very soon. Thank you. So last year, I was here and we saw, question, I'm sorry, yes.
Well, it wasn't a question, it was another definition of digital equity.
Yeah.
We tend to have a tiered pricing scheme that tends to keep people that are lower on the socioeconomic ladder with lower speeds.
Right.
And it's a relic from the 1990s, and we don't need that.
Exactly.
Right.
Agreed.
Agreed. I think we all agree. Exactly. So there are some communities that have access to higher speeds, and there are other communities that have maintained in this lower access point. And that is something that is an issue, right? And we definitely need equality as far as that's concerned. Yep. And when as I go on through this part of the presentation, I'm going to talk about where you can actually send in this information, our open public comment section that is closing on January 31st by 5 o'clock our time, Central Time. Yes, Pastor.
Oh, I just wanted to say infrastructure. And so in areas that are, if you will, have lower socioeconomic status, the infrastructure is not there to even, offer. And so is fiber in the hood?
Right.
That's the question, right? If fiber's in the hood, then, why would we put fiber in the hood?
Right.
Right? Why would we invest that? And so equity says we're going to do that.
Right, exactly. We have to have infrastructure in order to have access. Right? And so is it in the hood, or are we living in communities where our neighbors may have it, and then 2 doors down or a block away, you don't have access, or you have lower access than someone who's just 4 houses away from you? Yes. Mm-hmm.
I would also include access to resources. It's just one thing to have access to technology, but if you don't know how to use it, it's just as if you don't have access to the technology in the first place. So if you look at it from the standpoint of small businesses, as it relates to evening the playing field in the marketplace,
right.
Can a small business owner take advantage of the technology that are made available in order to create that level playing field? So I think that should be a significant consideration.
That last mile phenomena.
The assimilation of the technology into their daily business operations.
Exactly. And if I can repeat what you're saying, the businesses having access to technology to run their businesses, and then also having the resources in order to use the various technologies that they may need to sustain their businesses. Okay, definitely. Of course. Yes. And those are, again, when I get to the public comment section of where you can actually submit these comments, this is what we would like to see. Detailed information on what is it that we are missing, and or what is it that we need to be extensive on as it relates to the digital equity plan. You can read the digital equity plan. It's 200 plus pages. Or you can do Control F and find your specific section. as it relates to what it is that you would like to comment on. Because when you are submitting your public comments, we are looking for you to also put in those page numbers to specify exactly what area, what subject you are relating to when you're submitting those public comments. So thank you. And I'm just going to go past it. I think a couple of people might be in these pictures in this room. I know last year we were here back in May when we had our first listening session. It was exciting. We were downstairs, the round tables. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I enjoyed all of the conversations that I was able to participate in, listen to, and do what I'm doing now. I think I was moving the PowerPoint at that time too. So thank you. All right, so speaking of the listening sessions, this is, we have 10 regions in our state. We went through each region. I am specifically was focused on the Northeast region. I do live up here in the Northeast region. I live right now in Lake County. I used to live in Cook County for about 15 years in Bronzeville. So I am familiar with the various different communities around the Northeast area, but we went throughout the whole state. Our team, we have team members, my colleagues. They were traveling, they were having similar meetings that we're having even today to get that first information, that first bit of information face to face from you all to find out what are those needs. And that is what helped us to create and develop the Digital Equity Plan draft that you see now on our website. All right, here it is. This is the information that you want to know about. So when we were collecting the information over the past year, over about 6-7 month span, we had both in-person as well meetings as well as webinars that we were conducting. We met with local government stakeholders. We met with state government stakeholders, nonprofit organizations, residents, and some of our ISPs.
Can I jump in there real
Yes.
quick, Alicia? I think this is a part that I just want to reemphasize. Take a moment to take down that URL and go put your public comment. I mean, I implore everyone in here, all these great comments that you're providing now, go to that link and add them there, because that's part of the reasons why we're here. We want to get your voice, you know, what you see from your perspective with regards to things that you want to voice your opinion on, right? So take your cameras out, take a picture of it. I'm probably going to even send it back to your,
Yeah, please.
I'm probably going to even send it to the registration list as well, with everybody's email address as well, to make sure that you get those comments in.
So if you see here, and thank you so much, Michael, this is actually what the form looks like. And you can take a picture, that's a QR code with your camera, and that'll take you directly to, that'll take you directly to the website. This is it. This is where you're going to submit your information. When you go to this form, so this is a picture of the form. When you go to the form, you're putting in your contact information, but there's an upload option. That is actually where you're going to submit your information. That is when you submit very detailed facts. So you're taking time from this meeting, from the things that you all have been discussing amongst yourselves about what your needs are, what are the things that you would like the state to assist in, to highlight, to know about. Writing up a Word document, doing an Excel spreadsheet so that you can actually upload, and PDF, so that you can upload that information. You'll have the specific page of area of your interest from the Digital Equity Plan. Again, you can look at the table of contents in the Digital Equity Plan, or those savvy folks do Control F and type in your subject of what it is that you're looking for, and identify that page number or page numbers of interest. For those of you, businesses, telehealth, education, and then upload your document and be as detailed and as specific and factual as possible. And that closes next week, January 31st at 5 p.m.
Do it today.
Do it today. Do it today. Yeah, I think I am going to actually, we're going to move on to the, yeah, we're going to move on to the activity now. But do you have, what questions, comments, concerns do you have with that information that I just shared about the digital equity plan? We will share the PowerPoint with you so that you can see some of the detailed information that we may not get to present today because we enjoy this engagement. We enjoy this interaction. So here are some of the suggestions, again, reminding you, support your comment with substantive data, facts, and stories of lived experience. Identify the section number within the plan, within the digital equity plan. Make clear and concise comments. There is no word limit. Perhaps maybe not 260 pages like the plan.
Maybe we should take that one.
Right, I think so. But as much as you think is possible, suggest an alternative. If you disagree with any aspect and, include an explanation why you disagree. Those of you who, and all of us, we understand that financial digital literacy, that is something that we do need to include extensively in the plan. So definitely bring that up, write it up, submit it, and therefore include the pros, cons, and trade-offs in your comments. All right, so be as direct and specific as possible. Thank you. Now, pausing for questions, comments, concerns on any of this that that you have heard and or rehearing this morning. You have any questions? All right, please go to the website. So now we're going to have an interactive activity, and this probably solicit a little bit more information.
Great. Oops, sorry. Thank you, Alicia. Yeah. All right, so you can see we skipped through a bunch of slides just for the sake of time. We don't want to bore you all too much, but there's a lot more where that came from, so we'll send out this slide deck afterwards. It's kind of a nice preview of the digital equity plan for those who are not fast readers to get through 200 plus pages in one sitting. Okay, so now we know that we've been talking at you for a little bit, so we want to give you a chance to kind of get together and reflect amongst yourselves. So we prepared just a brief exercise to kind of get the wheels turning ahead of you all crafting your own public comments. So before we get into this, I just want to acknowledge that for many communities across the state, like the city of Aurora and the surrounding counties, this is not new to you. You all have your own digital equity plan. You have been doing this work for years before the federal government passed the Digital Equity Act. So we don't want you to have to reinvent the wheel. We really want to emphasize that we want to build on top of all of these sort of strengths and networks that have already been created. So just want to throw that out there, and I think that this exercise will sort of give us some good information to understand how we can best support you to achieve our mutual goals. So we're going to ask that you kind of get in a couple of small groups. I know that this space may not be super conducive to that, but try your best to maybe get into a group of, 4 to 6 folks. And then we're going to have 5 minutes to talk through gaps. So one section in the plan is around gaps. It talks about the interrelated factors of availability of broadband infrastructure, affordability of internet subscriptions, access to devices, and the need for digital literacy building opportunities. So first, just kind of reflect on how you may have seen those factors play out in your community, whether it's an experience you had or one of your neighbors, someone you support. Then the next 5 minutes, we're going to flip to assets. So there's another section in the plan all around assets, meaning the strengths, the things that already exist, and we want to build upon them. So we're looking for you to kind of tell us, what are all of the existing resources, programs, systems that already exist, and what do you need from the state, from the federal government to make these initiatives sustainable and effective in the long term? So that'll be a little brainstorming session, and then as time allows, we'll ask a few volunteers to share out. Does that make sense? Okay. So I'll be the timekeeper here, but if folks want to try and get in those groups, feel free to pull chairs around. And that first question is around gaps. All right, we're going to switch to part 2 of the exercise. So part 2 is what resources already exist that are tackling these issues, and what do these initiatives need to be sustainable and effective? So kind of switch to our strengths-based, what do we need to build upon the things that are already happening? Another 5 minutes.
Good, no? It's going good so far.
Yeah, no, it's great. I have a question for you.
Yes, ma'am.
If I wanted to like post up here for the rest of the day, is there an empty conference room I could work in?
You can come down to our office in IT.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Is there like a quiet?
Yeah, we have, so you can use our office.
That would be great, yeah. Always deciding, I can beat traffic, but then I miss meetings for minutes.
Yeah, no, you can come down to the IT department.
Okay, thanks.
You just want to make sure we have everything. Wait, there we go. The board, King County Board. Look, she was 10, she was lost.
Yeah.
This is now, they're going to start trying to call the mayor. What's going on?
Well, it's interesting, like if we did end up talking about ACP, I think it's good to have the providers.
It is. They're the ones that are doing it. Well, we got, like this variety of the people, but we work very well. It's different. Infrastructure and blocking a lot of stuff, which we've got to get into. It's just become so contentious. The telecom company, they're just looking at how can we augment the business that's already there. Right?
So you have this middle mile network in our
It's like 116 miles. It's all that laterals and middle mile, and we're going to extend another 700 past all 63,000 residents. Yeah.
With fiber?
Wow. And it's not funded. Yeah, and it's not funded by the state. We have a guidance ticket. We have a financial service company out of Colorado, and they do bond loans for utility company in the last 40 years. And they were impressed with our program. They said we want to support that because they want to use it as a model to take the other municipalities, and they would be the financial arm to do the loans and stuff. So they're going to use us as kind of like a case study to expand their business.
Wow, how did you get connected with them?
It took me 4 years to stay here.
I know, right?
Yeah, but I got connected to them with the second time around, because this is the third time. So the second time around, it was an ISP trying to come in and trying to say, let us take your network and we'll do it. And they were there with it. And then I was like, well, no, we want to start a disenfranchised business. They're like, oh, well, if we come in and take everything, we're going to start doing more. I was like, well, no. But then when the financial services people were hearing that, they was like, I told them, basically teach them what I want to do. And then when that fell through, they said, we can still work with you. Bang, they right? You know? So they was like, this is a good thing. This could be a new model for they was like, not just the state of Illinois, but for the nation. Because there's a lot of communities like Gary, Hammond, and all the like South Chicago that, they're going to get funding, but they don't have the model, and the execution arm to do it. So what we're going to do is shut that down. It's going to stand up a new one. It's called Aurora. It's like a 6330 structure. So what it is utility. So it's a not-for-profit, but it's for-profit, right? And we'll operate just like non-profit. We'll operate like like these companies, right? But they're kind of like non-profit. They're for-profit, so they get special tax benefits, so they don't have to pay taxes. And the company who are buying the electronics from it's called Calix. They do this for like Verizon, AT&T, right? Because people in the background, so they're going to come in and basically use their billing system. We'll use their marketing arm. They have everything, and we'll white label it like Aurora, and they'll first 3 years they'll run it, and then they'll be teaching us how to do it. Then we'll hire people on slowly, and then they'll move away.
That's amazing.
Workforce development and everything.
A city-run apprenticeship program
Exactly.
to these people in.
Exactly, but the city's not doing it. Illinois has a master service agreement with the city since 2012, and we use their fiber. So we got an exclusive agreement. So we're just going to continue to do that with the city, and we'll continue to provide the services to the city of Aurora. Right? So, the mayor had brought me in back in 2017. It was like, we got to use this fiber. That's the only reason I came in. Right, cybersecurity, right? But I grew up here. You just won the election and everything. Yeah.
That's an opportunity. All right. We're going to come back together for a share out. So if you can pick one person from your group to be the designated sharer. I don't know if everyone can hear me. You guys can hear me.
Hello,
Is this one?
everybody. Hello, hello, hello. Everybody, can we get your attention? Can we get everybody's attention?
We need that.
Go ahead. We don't have any China.
All right. So if everyone can pick a point person and keep your recap to 1 minute or less, and Alicia is going to take us away from here.
Yeah. All right, great discussions from each group, and we definitely are looking forward to you all sharing out. So I think actually I'll start on this side of the room. Well, I'll wait. No, I'll start on this side of the room. We want to hear your feedback. What is it that you all discuss? What's your takeaway? And then perhaps some things that you all discussed that you're going to include in the public comment section.
Well, in our group, we discussed digital equity, and I gave the explanation of digital equity kind of being the hub of a wheel. The digital equity goes so much farther than just the use of a computer. It's also racial equity, it's socioeconomic equity, it's education equity, it's healthcare equity. And in order to improve the quality of life for everybody, then we've got to get everybody connected and on the same level so that they have have the access and opportunity to improve their daily living.
All right, thank you, Janelle. And that's right. I know Devin and I, when we had one of our meetings earlier this week, that's what we mentioned. This digital equity space, it is about equity, period. And it is one thing that actually can bring us together. So, yeah, thank you. Next group.
Buddy.
All right, there's several parts we went over with this. One is from the county perspective, we're trying now to work with Mike and his team to not only bring this to Aurora, but look at all of Kane County. So what happens in the southern part of the county, we feel should also happen up north. So one of our challenges, a couple of our challenges, one, we're trying to hear from the Attorney General on a ruling that allow the county to have more flexibility. That's one. Two is, she mentioned it earlier, Michelle did, is that there's 24 of us on the board. So we need more than half to agree that this is that we need to get on board with this. The county is in the middle of starting, believe it or not, this is 2024, Economic Development Initiative. Well, I personally, I'm tired of the word initiative. We need to take action. So this could be a great part of us establishing the economic development plan, because technology is definitely the future and what we need to bring businesses to the county and good paying jobs. Accessibility for people who trying to work from home or trying to get jobs to work from home, that the whole thing with childcare and the cost of it is when 2020 happened and unemployment ended, people did not go back to work. And there's a lot of things that took place with that. And one of them was trying to find other means of income and not having to pay those costs. If I get a job and I got to have daycare, I got to have transportation, I got to pay insurances, I may need to make $75,000 or $80,000 a year. If I don't need those things, I might get away with making $45,000 or $50,000 a year. So that's a big difference in job searching and having the flexibility of looking for a job and applying for a job. So those are some of the things that we had talked about. And also,
Yeah, it was, in regards to existing resources, I work with T-Mobile, multiple other carriers, and broadband carriers. We all have some sort of program out there to try to help address it. But more than that, somebody mentioned digital literacy. There are multiple, what we've seen is like nonprofits that are trying to address that, not only digital literacy, but also sometimes devices. But there needs to be more. So
What else were we talking about? Yeah. Yeah, I don't remember everything. We talked a lot. We basically solved it all right here.
We
Now
did.
I can't remember.
Can I just add Can I just add one thing that, one of the main topics here in King County is traveling is a huge obstacle for everybody, right? So when we're looking at this future of work from home, we talked about that. It's not a thing of the past. It wasn't temporary. It's going forward. And somebody who is on the lower end of the pay schedule may pass up a job because they can't travel to it, right? So what we're doing with digital equity is we're also creating economic equity because now these jobs are available to people who otherwise wouldn't be able to get there. And that's a huge, huge thing.
Right. Thank you. Many takeaways from this group, and I'm sure going to be from everyone. So thank you very much. I wanted to bring up, and we did not bring this up, the ACP. And so we know that those of you who may not know, ACP is sunsetting. February 7th is the final day of enrollment, no more enrollment. Those who have ACP, they can use it up until April, but we need affordable options. So thank you. It's really good to hear from an ISP knowing that you all are working on that, and that is something that we're looking to talk more about and share information. Thank you. Next group.
Thank you. Okay. I was just appointed this, so bear with me. No, I'm playing. But just to tag along with that with the literacy piece, really just trying to figure out a way to be on the front end, not so much the reactive end. Like you said, 2020 is a great example. It's more of a knee-jerk reaction, and then it's like, here we go, use these computers, go home. What happens when they fail? And that's one thing missing. It's like, okay, well, call support. Look at the schools. How many IT support staff do we really have? Not nearly enough. So looking into answering some of those needs and questions, and then availability. I know from previous work with in communities, I know sometimes availability is during a certain time of the day while people are working. So you're asking a parent to be teacher and go to work, by the way. So that just having more availability, more resources, and then being on the forefront of it, the preventative side, instead of always kind of reactive or after the fact or late. So was the biggest piece, just to add along to what the last group was actually mentioning. So hopefully I cover everything.
Thank you. And a comment about literacy, since we have education folks here, remember the day when we actually had technology coordinators, technology teachers, and high schools and middle school and some elementary schools had to take computer classes. We need to bring that back. So thank you. Next group.
Hello, everybody. So we identified a number of gaps, and we worked on strengths as well. So a couple of gaps that we identified was, one, getting hardware for students, some lack of cooperation when it comes to school districts and connectivity, also a lack of direction for some cities as well. Not every city is, fortunate enough to have a leadership team that's trying to think about smart city initiatives and bringing people together and connectivity. So that's a gap in some places. Also, dated infrastructure, especially in Chicago and some of the surrounding suburbs, just dilapidated, antiquated, and dated infrastructure, and just the need for upgrades as well. And also, because we had a teacher as part of our group, which is very helpful, a lot of the things when it comes to students with no home internet, and also, once again, the lack of that hardware, everybody having competent hardware. Those were the gaps we identified. When it comes to the strengths, on Light Aurora, Aurora already has a fiber network, just needs to be strengthened. It's great to have something as opposed to nothing at all. And then also, we have a lot of good anchors in the community, one of which I'm familiar with, which is TBOC, the Taking Back Our Community Center on Grand on the east side. So TBOC, Maine Baptist, and a couple others are really good strengths that we have, and we think that we should just, we'd like to see those get strengthened.
Nice, thank you. Good takeaways. What I hear, computer technology centers, perhaps even internet cafes, and making that more extensive, that helps also. Thank you. Next group.
We talked a little bit about infrastructure and the business decision of building out infrastructure. Realistically, building infrastructure is an expensive proposition, especially if you're looking at fiber. Currently, most of our embedded carriers, they have existing systems because they either had coaxial network from cable or they had copper lines from AT&T. Now, of course, we had a couple of old AT&T bill heads, and so we were able to kind of go back from things from divestiture on. But basically, in a nutshell, most of what's embedded now was a regulated service. The federal government basically made the phone company take care of it and make sure it was maintained and run perfectly. Once they were able to seek relief and move on to non-regulated services, they bill. And because why? It's expensive to maintain. More importantly, when you have a customer, if I have to tell you, well, you got to sign a 30-year contract because otherwise I can't make this $50,000 or $5 million investment in building up your area, is just not feasible. One of the things that we talked about is that we come up with a plan through one, political will and innovative thinking to make a business proposition where we can build out a network using some of the embedded infrastructure, but more importantly, extend it and give us the opportunity to, one, bring in customers at a more affordable rate, but more importantly, as we kind of build our customer base, be able to play those savings back into building the network, also the community, because it's a community asset. And that, I think, addresses some of the infrastructure and also the affordability of subscription issues. Now, there's always going to be some issues, but we do have a plan, and we just need the will and the funding to make it happen.
We look forward to hearing that plan. Broadband is a utility, perhaps, right? All right, next group. Thank you. Next group.
So we talked about the main point of our conversation was around education of the youth.
You want to pass him the mic, please?
I can talk louder.
That's okay. Yeah, we know. I want to hear your voice and all this.
You want to hear my beautiful voice?
Yeah.
Shall I serenade you later on? No, so we talked about the importance of recognizing the need, specifically around how COVID happened. Right. All of a sudden, the state was shut down. We moved to this remote life where people were working remotely or learning remotely, but there was no real education around how to use the technology that we were then dumping on people in order to properly manage that new way of life that we had. So understanding the importance of technology, why it's important, how can it best serve you in your life, whether it's education or work or whatever you're doing, is key, because then you can take the most advantage of that technology. It can really serve you in the way that it was initially intended to. So that was the main point of our discussion.
Thank you. And the last group.
Yeah, our group was primarily composed of county representatives and small businesses. And when we were talking about gaps, I think fundamentally at the core of it is an infrastructure problem. When we look at especially more rural communities or as they span out from cities, that infrastructure just simply does not exist. And when we're solving this problem, we need to ensure that when we do bring that infrastructure in, that it's affordable. We were talking about the fact that small businesses need access to affordable internet. When you're bringing it in, it has to be affordable. And if we're talking about it being sustainable in the long term, we brought up an ethical perspective where there needs to be some form of ethics that come with it, and that encompasses affordability and accessibility, whether or not there's competition on a network or there's only one ISP available.
Thank you. All right. So I'm going to actually sum up what I hear as we have some folks taking some notes. First, we have to work on the fact, we have to understand that broadband should be accessible for everyone, equitable. And this would perhaps help to reach some of the other social issues or social norms that we have in our society at large. The other thing is having an investment and from stakeholders like local government, state government, county government, city government, and then also the education system, making sure perhaps we go back to some of the things that we did, because there's a question, were we actually more digital literate back in the day in the early 2000s? 2000s than we are now because we do not have technology coordinators, technology teachers, and therefore mandatory computer classes in all of the schools. And if we do not have those classes, what are the alternatives? We used to have a lot of internet cafes. We used to have CTCs, telecenters. So we need to have that. So that's also what I heard. But in order to have all of that, we have to have infrastructure. So how we're going to get infrastructure, and we have to expand the infrastructure, and we have to be equitable about that infrastructure. So thank you. I'm going to pass this on to my colleague, Devin. We have taken your notes. Please put those notes strategically in the public comment section by, I'll say January 30th, not January 31st. All right, thank you.
All right. Well, hopefully that was a fun chance to get to know each other, discuss, change it up. And now we'll move on to our final section, which is called the BEAD Challenge process. So I think we have a really unique crowd today because it sounds like we have both city folks and folks from rural areas. So I'm going to kind of go through a little bit about this mapping challenge process and how it is important to both of these communities. So first, to back up, I know we've talked a lot about infrastructure. So out of the two big buckets of funds that I mentioned earlier, the BEAD program is focused on infrastructure. Again, the Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Program. So Illinois was allocated $1.04 billion to connect all unserved and underserved households in the state. Anything that we invest in is required to have a low-cost broadband service option in addition to a middle-class affordability plan. The priority is unserved and underserved households, meaning homes that may have no broadband or only access to just under 25/3 megabits per second. This is an FCC definition. And households who may have access to that basic 25/3 megabits per second speed, but not quite up at 100/20 megabits per second speed. So we're in this unique time right now called the challenge process. And why is this important? We are working to make sure that the state's broadband map accurately reflects your home and your organization's access to broadband. And it's important that we get this right, or as accurate as we possibly can, because it will inform which locations are eligible for broadband infrastructure funding. So I'm going to walk through more details, but that's kind of the high-level overview, is getting the map right. So who can submit challenges? There are 3 entities who are eligible to directly participate in the challenge process. And that means looking at this map, checking out the status of your home or your community, and then if it looks different than what you experience it to be, you'll have an opportunity to log on to a portal, upload evidence, and submit what we're calling a challenge. This is something that every state is going through, but Illinois is taking our own approach to make sure that folks are really aware of this opportunity and how to participate. So 3 eligible entities. 1, units of local government, so a lot of people in here. 2, nonprofit organizations. I think we've got a couple nonprofits in here as well. And then 3, internet service providers. We are also allowing individuals to participate through a speed testing tool. So these will still have to be submitted by a nonprofit, but we have a nonprofit called the Internet Equity Initiative out of the University of Chicago who has created the speed testing tool to make it easier for individuals to participate without having to gather evidence or find a local representative to help submit their challenges for them. So what can be challenged? There is a map that is live as of Monday. So you can zoom in on that map, search for your zip code, your county, your address, and any location that you see on that map is up for challenge. When will all of this start? So that map is available now. The challenge process window will run between 2 and 4 weeks. We are waiting on a federal green light to start that. So that's why we're kind of trying to ramp up now, train everyone up on what this is, how to participate, where to look. So by the time that window opens, everyone is ready to go with their evidence for those who do want to participate. So I want to zero in on how individuals can participate because all of you in this room, I'm assuming many of you are trusted local partners. I heard some faith-based institutions are here, small businesses. You all are closest to residents on the ground. So really important vehicle to kind of get the word out. So individuals can participate by taking 3 speed tests over 3 days. Do folks know what a speed test is? Pop quiz. We got a yes and a no. Do you want to share?
Yes, you can basically download, use a web version, and it tells you how fast your upload speed is, or streaming speed, whatever. And there's a lot of non-transparency about that because you pay for what you think you're getting, high speed, and you're not. And so your business suffers. And so it's very important to know what that speed is because it causes problems.
Thank you. Yes. Exactly. So speed testing is important for a couple of reasons. One, to help us get this map right. But in a broader term, we want folks to be educated and empowered and know what speeds they're getting so they can figure out if it's what they're paying for and if it is right for them. So we'll go through kind of what this speed test looks like, but I'll just share on a high level. So if an individual is kind of curious to learn about what their speeds are, or they're concerned that they might not be getting the speeds that they think they're getting, they can take a speed test. It's really quick, takes about a minute, 3 times over 3 days. They should look up what they're currently subscribing to, write down those speeds. There will be an upload speed and a download speed, and then submit their name and address and information. Then this information will be submitted to the Office of Broadband, and if it is a valid challenge, it could potentially change the status of that household. And so just to reiterate what I have on the bottom of this slide, we want to get this map as accurate as possible, but we don't know what folks are experiencing in their homes. So that's where you come in. Spread the word about this opportunity and help folks get trained up on what is a speed test, what speeds should I be getting, and how can I make sure that this information is reflected accurately in that map. So you all are critically important here. Again, your role as a trusted local organization, you can empower residents to participate by giving them a training, helping them kind of like demystify what a speed test is, make it a little bit less intimidating. I think, many of us didn't even know what the term broadband meant until it kind of came onto the public sphere. So lots of opportunity to kind of train up residents, post flyers, and support them if they are interested in taking a speed test. You could kind of walk them through it. So my city folks, I know that a lot of the broadband infrastructure talk is very relevant to rural areas where there may not be any connection at all or really poor connection. Hugely important. What's also important is making sure that folks in multi-dwelling units, which are apartment buildings, federal government's fun way of saying apartment building, also have that quality connection in every single unit. So we've heard anecdotally that perhaps connection might go to the lobby or the first floor, but may not go to every single unit in that building. So now is an opportunity to empower residents of those buildings to take a speed test and share out what speeds they may actually be experiencing. And again, this is hard because you have to, understand who might be having challenges, link up with them and share about this opportunity. But folks on the ground who already have these relationships are kind of the right people to be asking these questions. Yes. Great. I'm hearing we have the director of the Housing Authority here.
Mr. Ralph Jordan, can you wake up over there?
Mr. Jordan. This is for you, Mr. Jordan.
Do you want to comment on this in terms of like the multi-dwelling units, the residents, specifically like in Aurora Housing Authority, right? Here within Aurora, in terms of internet speeds and connectivities and things of that nature. Can someone pass him the mic back there?
got a way to put him on the spot.
Oh, yeah. I love to do
See
this.
how we do it in Aurora.
I'm sorry, y'all. But he's my friend, though, so. My workers
so
keep
it's okay.
texting me and calling me and emailing me, so I'm sorry. But yeah, for us, the Housing Authority, we provide that assistance to residents to get internet through through HUD. From years ago, residents only have to pay like $10 a month for the internet services. But for us here in Aurora, for 3 of our sites, residents don't have to pay anything. We pay it for them.
It's amazing.
So we provide that service to the tenants ourselves. Just for the scattered site homes and the family site is where residents have to kind of pay on their own. Again, we provide that service to them on an annual basis. Now, we do have a big challenge on our new 1449 senior estates. We're trying to figure that out right now as to how that process is going to work. So, Michael, thanks for inviting me here because we're really trying to get a clear understanding as we're building new 70 single-family home and duplexes for seniors. We're really trying to figure out how this internet process will work. We've been going back and forth with Charles and AT&T, Comcast, and so we're about to finalize that very soon. But yes, that's the type of service that we try to give to the tenants. And we're also looking for we have a youth center that Charles just met with me yesterday that we're going to be hopefully having a grand opening in March at the Emmanuel School, 551 4th Avenue. And some of the stuff that you all talking about, like STEM programs and stuff like this, Mike, I need to talk to you about that.
It's already hooked up.
We want to have we want to have after-school programs and
Awesome.
And things like that for youth throughout the city, not just in a particular neighborhood. And so, yes, we want STEM programs. We as Charles came by yesterday to work on the internet and Wi-Fi service for us. And so, yes, we are definitely involved in all of this for our residents, not just our residents, also for people in the community for this youth center. And that's our nonprofit that has that. It's called Northern Lights Development Corporation. So, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We'll clap. So if you, at the Housing Authority or really anywhere, hear of someone who may not be getting the speeds that they believe they should be getting, taking a speed test is an easy way to just test that out and see what you get. So I'm going to keep rolling, but if there are questions, I'm happy. There's a lot of nuance to this, so happy to kind of go into more details after I do the run through. All right, so here's the process. Step 1, and these are some slides. We hosted a Train the Trainer, so kind of think of it like that. We're going to walk through these steps for you, and then you'll internalize them, and then you can train others in your community. So step 1 is find the internet speeds your household currently subscribes to. This could be if you log on to your ISP account, and I know we have some ISP partners here who can, maybe provide any tips on finding your current speed, but I tested it out. You can look at your account, you can log on to the mobile app, or you can just call your provider and ask, what are the download and upload speeds I currently subscribe to? Write that down. Step 2, we've got this handy website available called beadchallenge.org. So hopefully relatively self-explanatory. To start a speed test, you just click start here. And then there's a couple of best practices to make sure you're getting an accurate result as possible. So the first one is be as close to your router as you can. The second one is you want to do this on a laptop or a computer. And the third is you need to be connected to your Wi-Fi network. So you can't be on cellular data, you have to be on your Wi-Fi network. If you have an Ethernet cord, you can plug that in, but really just being close to that, a router and on a computer. So you hit start, maybe takes 30 seconds to a minute. And then for any Spanish speakers, this is available if you hover over each button in Spanish. So you'll get your results, and this is what it will look like here. The sort of key things to know is what is my download speed, what is my upload speed, and what is my latency. Download and upload speed, kind of self-explanatory. How quickly can I download documents? How quickly is data coming to my computer? Upload is when I'm trying to upload a document to a Google Drive or send an email. How quickly does that happen? And latency is the sort of time it takes for data to be delivered back and forth. So what I like to say is, you know, you have, or you may have too high of latency if when you're on a video call, a Zoom, you're streaming video, your connection's a little choppy. All right, so what are we looking for? This is a sample speed test. So download, upload, latency. Those are kind of like your three key things here. So these are the questions to ask yourself. Is my download speed less than 100? So what do we say? No. Got a great download speed there. Is my upload speed less than 20? Yes. Yeah. Is my latency greater than 100? No. So because the answer to one of those questions was yes, I'm going to get a notification like this, which will prompt me to go ahead and submit my speed test, because it could potentially change the status of my building from served to underserved or from underserved to unserved. Note that you need to take 3 speed tests on 3 different calendar days, and it takes the median result of those 3 speed tests, and based on that, that's how we'll know whether or not it has the potential to change the status of a building. One quick note is that this really depends on the speeds that you subscribe to. So if someone subscribes to 100 over 20 or more, that's a great opportunity to take a speed test. If you are subscribing to something less than that, you shouldn't expect to get more than that. Maybe you will. But really 100 over 20 speeds is that sweet spot. If you are subscribed to that basic tier of 25 over 3, that's another great opportunity to make sure that you're getting 25 over 3. And again, in all cases, latency should be less than 100. If it is over 100, that's kind of a trigger to say, let me submit this and see what happens.
Can I add something, Devin, on that? I think this is actually great, but I think a lot of times in disenfranchised community, they don't know how to do that, right? And I think that's a huge gap, right? So you mentioned about a non-for-profit that supports these type of activities. I mean, can they support the residents in that space, right?
So the non-for-profit created beadchallenge.org, which is the tool. But anyone in this room can then bring this information to folks who may have no idea what a speed test is and kind of walk them through this process. Okay. And we have some flyers and social media graphics that we can pass around to make sure you have what you need to get the word out in a digestible way.
Maybe we can also support that at the city level and kind of push it out.
Perfect.
Through our mechanisms as well.
Yeah.
And I just want to note that here on the city public Wi-Fi, we got 117 download and 97.2 upload, which is pretty impressive for a public Wi-Fi network.
Nice job.
I don't want to pat ourselves on the back, but yeah. They actually denied us for the original one. Or for the middle mile, sorry. Go ahead,
yeah, you'll get this notification. Oh, something else to mention. After you take your first speed test, it's going to prompt you to enter your information below. So you'll enter your name and your contact information. That's where you'll enter the speeds that you currently subscribe to, which is important. Once you do this, you'll receive an email. And then if you opt in, you'll get email reminders to take that second and third speed test to complete the trio. If you don't opt in, you won't get the email reminders, but just, again, another way to make it a tiny bit more accessible for folks who are living their lives and might forget about taking a speed test. One more tip is you can't go and do this in other folks' households. It needs to be the subscriber who actually takes it, attests to what they subscribe to, and submits it. Yeah.
Thanks, Michelle here. Just a really quick question. For those households that have multiple people working, you indicated the speed test needs to be close to the router, but that's not always practical when you have multiple people. professionally in a household or multiple children. So when we are explaining the speed test to individuals, we need to say, you have to be right on top of your router, and they're going to look at you like you have 3 heads. Is there any, like, consideration for that speed?
Yeah.
I mean-
so yeah, we're following the guidance from NTIA as closely as we can to make sure that all the speed tests submitted are valid and are as accurate as possible. One tip that I can give is folks are welcome to take speed tests during the time that the network is most strained in the community, which can be from 5 to 10 p.m. when folks are home from work and, going online, watching TV, doing whatnot. But you don't want to take a speed test when other people in your household are on video calls or gaming and things like that. So you're trying to test your sort of pure speed to get that accurate measurement. And then what happens after that is the state takes in that information, and internet service providers will have an opportunity to submit a rebuttal and say, you know what, they are right, we cannot provide these speeds, or we actually have evidence that we do provide these speeds. So as accurate as possible is what we recommend. Yeah.
So a speed test are very different over Wi-Fi than if you were directly connected to the router. So should they be directly plugged into the router in order to get the most accurate result from the speed test, or are you accepting Wi-Fi results as well?
If it's possible, that's great. Most folks, won't have an Ethernet, or just adding that requirement may prevent them from participating at all. So I think if you're in a position to share that information and someone is able to do that, it's definitely the most accurate. Getting closer to the router is sort of like the second best way to do it. So kind of balancing getting that perfect speed test with participation and education pretty broadly.
It's like radio, FM and AM. The further away you get from a radio tower, the less and less of the signal you can catch radio. So
Thanks.
same sort of concept.
All right, so you got to do that three times over 3 days. They don't need to be chronological. They can be, or sequential. They can be any 3 days. Folks can start as soon as now and then do that through the end of the challenge process, which will likely be in mid-February. So these are the social media graphics and flyers that we talked about. We're trying to message this as like 3 easy steps. Write down your speed, take a speed test, submit, and repeat. And we'll make sure that these are emailed out and encourage you to share them on social media or print them out, put them in, the laundry room or the common area, the library, wherever you think folks will be hanging out to see it. And then these are a little bit more detailed of one-pagers, less for the audience of residents, more for the audience of you all, because I know you're now experts on this, maybe. But they just kind of answer some of those FAQs that you might get. And then I'd like to point everyone to the BEAD Challenge Process landing page, dceo.illinois.gov/BEAD Challenge. This is where, if you need like any resources, past trainings, documents, slides, recordings, these documents, they are all right there, trying to organize everything in one place. And then I think, okay, our last slide here. So what I just talked through was how individuals can participate, but I know we have a lot of local governments, nonprofits, and ISPs in the room. So you all can actually participate directly. You're welcome to collect challenges from your residents. You're welcome to submit challenges around a whole other category called community anchor institutions, which are defined as basically local institutions that support vulnerable communities and getting connected to the internet. We're defining this as schools, libraries, healthcare centers, certain nonprofits qualify. So those organizations, per NTIA standards, need to have access to 1 gigabit symmetrical service, which is equivalent to over 1,000 megabits per second. So that one's likely going to be less of a speed test, more of, if I'm a library, can I call up my local provider and get those speeds? And if not, then they may be eligible for the broadband infrastructure funding. So I know this is a lot, but to tie it all back to where we started, we've got this broadband map, and we want to get the map right, but we can't do it alone, and so we need your help. So these are some ways to participate, and we'll make sure that you get the materials that you need and encourage your questions. You know, if you want to host another training or call me on my phone, I've talked to lots of folks, just really trying to get people engaged and involved. And so with that, I think we'll take any other questions about any of the topics we covered today.
I had a question about the underserved wards that are identified right now, 1, 2, and 7. Are there any plans kind of being developed now or in the future that we can see that'll deal with the outreach specifically for those target wards? And if so, will there, if there isn't already, will there be like any listening sessions or perhaps discussions to prep that ground game?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's phase 1. Actually, you're actually talking about the broadband rollout here for the city of Aurora, right? Yeah, we're going to have a full engagement campaign and everything. So there's more to come on that. Trust me, you won't miss it because it's going to be big. All right, yeah. Any other questions? Yep, Alderman.
I think that for the state, and probably more of a county issue, but I think in the initial meeting, which I attended in Joliet, not here, but there was a lot of talk about rural broadband, and I'm just wondering if that is also a qualifier in considering funding opportunities, just as the county board members might be looking at doing this as well.
I want to make sure I understood your question correctly. Are you asking, can rural communities participate in the challenge process, or how do they fit into the
Challenge process and a distribution of funds.
Gotcha. So I'll make sure I send out the link to the map, or maybe I can write it down so you all can check it out. But the way that the funding, the BEAD infrastructure dollars are prioritized is priority number 1, and this is a federal requirement. Priority number 1 are unserved households and businesses, meaning they either don't have any broadband connection or they don't have connection to 25 download speeds, 3 upload speeds, megabits per second. So we have to cover all of those areas with high-speed internet within the 5 years of this program. So they're priority number 1. Priority number 2 is that second tier of households and businesses that may have 25 over 3, but don't have that next tier of 100 over 20. Then they'll get covered. So it's looking like both of those areas will be covered by the funds. It all depends on how everything shakes out with the cost of doing this expensive work. But that's how it's looking. Yeah.
Just a quick follow-up then. So what if you encounter somebody that does not have broadband?
Mhm.
How do you register that person?
It's very likely that they're already marked as unserved on the map and thus are eligible for funding, so they have it easy. They don't have to do a thing, but they can check on the map. So search for an address, a zip code, and you'll see that it's color-coded. So green and yellow, they're these little icon circles, are eligible for BEAD funding, so they don't need to do anything. If a location is red, that means they're not eligible, and so that would be an opportunity to submit a challenge if someone felt like their experience was different from what was reflected on the map.
So John, to your point there, 52% of King County is actually agricultural and rural. People don't really realize that, but most of King County is agriculture, so.
And I'm sorry if I missed this, but when you look at the map currently, when you either in our region or as a state, how many people are unserved, so don't have any access?
I think the latest number is roughly 300,000 across the state don't have access.
Wow.
And
Households? That's
yes.
Households?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll get you the exact number.
I got a question.
Yeah.
Excuse me. For the workforce development and technology adoption, do you guys have a plan in place? Are you piloting ideas? What does that look like if you do?
Yeah. So that's in the digital equity plan, and I think we didn't have time to get to that slide. But the digital equity plan is really important because it's sort of what goes beyond the physical technology. What is the kind of human element here? So how are community members being trained to support the development of broadband infrastructure? What sort of apprenticeship programs are we launching? And then once the technology is connected, how can folks use that to participate in the workforce, whether that's accessing classes, resume building workshops, remote learning, remote working, which I heard some folks talk about here. So I would point you to the digital equity plan and check out the workforce development sections. But the short answer is yes, it is a huge part of the work.
And also here, we will also partner with folks like you as part of our workforce development as well, and which we also do today as well. So a lot of that will be driven, at least by the local side, in terms of what those programs look like, right? So.
And I'll just add one thing. This is a question that we've gotten. So we talked a lot about speed challenges. There's a whole list of challenge types. And I'll point you to that website to kind of watch past webinars, or I'm happy to do a one-on-one to explain further. But the other one I'll discuss is called availability, and this may be relevant for some of the rural communities. If a household or a business is marked as served on the map, or even underserved, but in that household or business's experience, they cannot get, it's kind of a binary, they just can't get broadband, then they can collect evidence such as communication from an internet service provider saying, sorry, we can't serve your household within 10 days. Or maybe the provider says, we can serve you, but we need you to pay, X amount of money so we can run the connection to your house. All of those instances, that location would not be considered served. So in that case, a local government or a nonprofit could submit an availability challenge with that evidence. So just want to kind of make sure folks understand the spectrum of challenges to kind of refine the map. All right, well, I know we're probably over time, so really appreciate everyone's time, and Clayton and Michael for hosting here. So we'll be sending out lots of recap information and share our emails. Happy to chat further about any of this. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.